Chapter 11, The Prelude to a Hostile Takeover. The late autumn wind had grown sharp and biting, whipping the last of the wheat stubble across the fields. The air at the farm still hummed with the sweet warmth of new love, but a storm, cold and malicious, was already creeping up on the Carter farm, silent and unrelenting. That morning, Leah had just finished topping up the cattle's feed in the cowshed when she saw two black sedans pull straight into the farm and stop in front of the main house. Their glossy, polished bodies stood out starkly against the farm's beat-up old pickup. The doors opened and several men in crisp, tailored suits stepped out, their expressions arrogant and cold. At their head was a middle-aged man around 50, balding and slightly stocky, his eyes sharp with the calculating greed only a career businessman could possess. Leah's stomach dropped instantly. She knew who he was, Arthur Black, the man who actually ran Blackstone Agribusiness. Over the years, he'd swallowed up more than a dozen family farms in the surrounding area through hostile takeovers, violent evictions, and backroom deals with loan companies, locking down the entire agricultural backbone of the plains in his iron grip. He was a man the whole town feared, the kind everyone crossed the street to avoid. And he'd come to her door in person. "Miss Leah Carter," Arthur spoke, his voice gravelly, thick with condescending arrogance. His eyes swept brazenly over the farm's land, the wheat fields, the cowshed, like he was appraising a piece of merchandise up for auction. "I've heard a great deal about you. Mr. Black, I don't think I have anything to discuss with Blackstone Agribusiness." Leah stood her ground, her back straight, forcing herself to stay calm, even as her fingers grew cold with dread. "My farm isn't for sale. Please leave." "Not for sale?" Arthur scoffed, sauntering slowly up the porch steps and sitting down in one of the chairs without invitation, propping one leg over the other. Now, little girl. Don't be so hasty. I didn't come here to ask for your permission. I came here to give you an opportunity." His assistant stepped forward immediately, slamming a contract down on the table in front of Leah. "Blackstone Agribusiness is willing to pay $300,000 for the full title to all land, buildings, farm equipment and livestock owned by the Carter farm in your name." Arthur lifted his chin, his gaze dismissive. "That's the highest offer I'll make. And your only chance. $300,000. Leah nearly laughed in his face. This 1,000-acre farm had fertile soil, direct access to water and easy transportation. The land alone was worth over $2 million. Add in the buildings, equipment, cattle, and the projected harvest from the wheat fields for the coming year, and the total value was close to $3 million. $300,000 wasn't even enough to cover half of her bank loan. It was outright theft. "You're insulting me. And you're insulting this land." Leah's face was like ice, every word sharp and unyielding. "I refuse." "Refuse?" The smile slowly faded from Arthur's face, his tone turning dark and menacing. "You think you have a choice in this? The loan your father took out when he was sick, principal and interest, it's already over $1.5 million. It's 3 months past due. The bank can file for foreclosure at any time. How much do you think you'll get when it's auctioned off by the court? 50,000? 10,000? Leah's heart seized painfully. He knew every single detail, down to the last cent. "You've been in bed with the loan company this whole time, haven't you?" She lifted her chin, her eyes blazing with rage. "From the very start, you set this up on purpose. You made sure I couldn't pay it back, so you could steal the farm for pennies on the dollar. Clever girl." Arthur didn't even bother to hide it, his tone almost smug. "This land is the linchpin in my plan to lock down the organic wheat supply chain across the state. I will have it. You're a single woman, you've held on for 2 years, and that's more than admirable. But why keep fighting a losing battle?" He leaned forward, his voice thick with unvarnished threat. "Sign the contract, and you walk away with $300,000 safe and sound. Refuse, and in 3 months I guarantee you'll be hounded to the brink by the bank, cornered by debt collectors, buried under court summons. In the end, you'll walk away with nothing, thrown out of this home in disgrace. Over my dead body." Leah's jaw was tight, her eyes burning red, but she refused to back down an inch. This farm was built by my great-grandfather when he homesteaded this land. It was protected by my father. I will never sell it to a man like you, even if it kills me. Want to play the hero? Arthur sneered, standing up and smoothing out his suit jacket, his eyes cold and vicious. Fine. Let's see how long you can hold on. 3 months. I'll give you 3 months. And when you're completely broke with nowhere left to turn, don't come crawling on your knees to beg me. He paused, spitting out one final threat. And when you do beg, I won't give you a single cent. With that, Arthur turned and left with his men, the black sedans peeling out in a cloud of dust, leaving nothing but cold, bitter malice hanging in the air. Leah stood on the porch, her body shaking uncontrollably. Rage, humiliation, fear, helplessness, every emotion crashed over her at once, wrapping around her like a vice. She'd thought with Logan here, the farm was turning around, the loan was slowly being paid off, that everything was going to be okay. But she hadn't expected Blackstone Agribusiness to bare its fangs so fast, so viciously. They hadn't come to negotiate. They'd come to declare war. To tell her, plain and simple, we're going to take everything you have. What's wrong? A steady, worried voice came from behind her. Logan had just come back from the fields, and when he'd seen the black sedans driving away, then spotted Leah pale and shaking on the porch, his stomach had dropped. He hurried forward, his hands coming to rest firmly on her shoulders. Leah turned to look at him, and the brave face she'd put on crumbled completely. Her voice shook as she spoke. Logan? Blackstone was here. Arthur Black himself. He wants to buy the farm for next to nothing. He said the court will auction off my home in 3 months. She repeated every word Arthur had said to him, her voice growing more unsteady with every sentence, the hurt and fear building with each word. The more Leah spoke, the colder the air around Logan grew. By the time she'd finished, his face was like ice, not a single trace of warmth left in his deep blue eyes. He radiated a suffocating, oppressive aura, the cold fury of a man born to command, the icy rage of someone whose bottom line had been crossed. It was a world away from the gentle, steady man he was in his daily life. He'd known Blackstone Agribusiness was up to no good, had guessed they were in bed with the loan company. But he'd never imagined they'd be so brazen, so ruthless, showing up on her doorstep to threaten her, to steal from her outright. What hurt him most of all was that Leah had been shaking with fear, yet still forcing herself to be strong, refusing to let a single tear fall in front of him. Don't be scared. Logan pulled her gently into his arms, his touch soft but his voice unshakable, firm as steel. I'm here. They won't touch you. They won't touch this home. But they have the loan over our heads. Leah pressed herself against his chest, her voice breaking. They set this whole thing up from the start. We can't win against them. Blackstone is huge, they have money, they have power, they have connections with the government and the banks. Against the sheer weight of capital and influence, a single woman running a family farm was nothing more than a speck of dust. Logan tightened his arms around her, holding her close, his chin resting on the top of her head. His voice was low and powerful, each word a sledgehammer shattering every last bit of her fear. I told you I'd help you hold on to this place. Whether it's Blackstone Agribusiness, or anyone else who tries to hurt you, I won't let them get away with it. His arms were warm and solid, his voice sure and reliable. Leah pressed herself against him, listening to the steady beat of his heart, and her racing, panicked heart finally began to calm. She had no idea what power Logan held to stand against Blackstone Agribusiness, no idea how he would face down that kind of capital and influence. But when he said, I'm here, she believed him. 3 months. Logan pulled back, looking down at her red-rimmed eyes, his thumb brushing away the wetness at the corner of her eye. His gaze was ice-cold. I'll make them learn exactly what it costs to set their sights on the Carter farm. He didn't offer any more empty words of comfort. He turned and picked up the discarded acquisition contract from the table, his fingers tightening around the paper until it crumpled in his grip. Arthur Black. Blackstone Agribusiness. He'd never wanted to use his power too soon, had only wanted to stay quietly by Leah's side, to protect these wheat fields. But now these men had come knocking, had crossed his line, had threatened the person he cared about most. They'd made him a target. And they would regret it. Logan crumpled the contract into a ball and tossed it into the trash, the movement sharp and decisive, carrying an unspoken threat. Starting today, all of the farm's external business goes through me, he said, looking at Leah, his tone serious. You don't have to face them again. You don't have to listen to their threats. I'll handle everything. Leah looked at him, at the unshakable resolve and cold fire in his eyes she'd never seen before, and felt her heart settle, even as a faint unease lingered. She was growing more and more certain that the secret Logan was hiding was far bigger than she'd ever imagined. The way he stood so calmly in the face of Blackstone's threat, the unshakable confidence in his words, this was not an ordinary man just running from his past. But in that moment, she didn't have the strength to ask, didn't want to ask. All she knew was that this man would do everything in his power to protect her. Okay. Leah nodded softly, wrapping her arms around his waist and pressing her face into his chest. I trust you. Logan leaned down, pressing a soft, solemn kiss to her forehead. I've got you. That afternoon, Logan drove into town alone. No one knew where he went, who he met, what he did. All Leah knew was that when he came back, his face was calm, his gaze deep, and he only told her this. I've got the loan situation under control for now. They won't come harassing you again, and they won't start foreclosure proceedings in the next 3 months. Leah was shocked and overjoyed. Really? How did you do it? Logan just smiled, gently ruffling her hair. I told you. I've got this. All you need to do is stay here, take care of the farm and be happy. He still wouldn't say more, but every promise he made rang true, solid as stone. But Leah knew in her heart that Blackstone Agribusiness's hostile takeover had only just begun. This wasn't just a simple harassment. It was a long war, a battle between capital and land, between theft and protection. The other side had money, power, a plan, a trap already laid. All they had was these wheat fields and each other. Night fell, wrapping the farm in darkness. The warm porch light flickered on. The two of them sat side by side, not speaking, just holding hands tight. Leah leaned her head on Logan's shoulder, staring out at the black wheat fields stretching into the distance. The fear was gone, but a heavy weight lingered in her chest. Logan, she said quietly, if we really can't hold on, don't get yourself in trouble for me. You can leave. You don't have to stay for this. She didn't want to drag him down. Didn't want him to get caught up in a dangerous fight because of her. Logan turned to look at her, his gaze utterly serious, every word clear and unshakable. I'm not leaving. From the day you pulled me out of that ditch in the rain, this place has been my home. You've been my family. Where this home is, I am. Where you are, I am. 3 simple sentences, more moving, more powerful than any grand vow. Tears burned in Leah's eyes and she nodded hard, squeezing his hand even tighter. The night deepened, malice swirling in the shadows. The first act of the war had begun. But the Montana stars still blazed bright overhead, the wheat field still quiet and still. 2 hearts bound tight together were ready. Ready to stand side by side, to face whatever storm was coming. No matter how powerful Blackstone Agribusiness was, no matter how hard the road ahead, they would not let go. They would not back down. They would not let this home be stolen away. Because from this day forward, Leah Carter was no longer standing guard over the Carter farm alone. Chapter 12: The Truth and the Promise. The night wrapped the farm in quiet, soft warmth, the porch light spilling a circle of golden yellow glow over Leah's slightly tense profile. Arthur Black's visit that day had lodged like a shard of ice in her chest all day long. Even though Logan had stabilized the loan and fended off the overt harassment, the backroom deals, the scheming, the relentless pressure still made her heart race every time she closed her eyes. Logan sat beside her, his thumb brushing the back of her hand in slow, steady circles, the warm pressure never letting up. He could see the barely contained panic and exhaustion beneath her forced calm. What do you want to talk about? He spoke first, his voice soft and gentle. Leah took a deep breath, her shoulders slumping slightly. She knew there was no point in hiding it any longer. This wasn't a fight she could win with stubborn pride alone. She had to lay all her cards on the table, all her mess, all her desperation, all the ugly truth that had been weighing her down for 2 years. She stood up, turned and walked into the house, and came back a moment later with a thick stack of files, dropping them heavily on the small table. The edges of the paper were frayed and worn. On top was the bank's loan contract, stamped with its official seal, followed by pages of compounding interest bills, overdue notices, and the farm's income and expense ledgers. Every page told the story of her 2 years of struggle, of her fight against the brink of ruin. Logan's gaze fell on the stack of papers, his expression darkening slightly. "I never told you the whole story. How much the farm really owes, what kind of trap we're caught in." Leah knelt down in front of him, looking up at him, her eyes glistening with tears, but she refused to let them fall. "Today, I'm going to tell you everything." She spoke slowly, laying every last bit of the truth bare. When her father had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, he drained every last bit of the farm's working capital to pay for treatment, and taken out a $1 million loan from the bank, using the land as collateral. That money had been eaten up by the hospital in just a few short months, but her father hadn't made it. Her mother, broken by the loss, had died of a sudden heart attack not long after, leaving her alone with a debt of astronomical proportions. $1 million in principal, plus 2 years of interest, penalties, and late fees. It's now up to $1,560,000. Leah's voice cracked, her finger pointing to the numbers on the bill. "I'm a single woman, running this farm, living or dying by the weather. We had a drought 2 years ago, a hailstorm last year. The harvests get worse every year, and Blackstone Agribusiness colludes with the other buyers to drive the grain prices down to rock bottom. I can barely keep the farm running, let alone pay back the loan." Logan listened in silence, his brow furrowing tighter and tighter with every word. He'd known the debt was heavy, but he'd never imagined it was this bad. Blackstone never had good intentions, not from the start. Leah bit down on her lower lip, her voice thick with humiliation and rage. Arthur Black was in bed with the bank's senior management from the very beginning. They deliberately approved the loan for my father. Then the second my parents were gone, they tightened the repayment schedule, jacked up the penalties on purpose, just to force me into default, into a position where I could never pay it back. They've been waiting for this day. Waiting for me to break, for the court to auction the farm, for them to snap up the Carter farm for next to nothing. This land is the key to their supply chain across the state. They want it, and they'll do anything to get it. By the end, her voice was shaking uncontrollably. She knelt on the floor, her arms wrapped around her knees like a trapped animal with nowhere left to run, laying every last bit of her vulnerability bare for him to see. "I've kept fighting because this is the home my great-grandfather built, the land my father protected. It's every memory I have from when I was a kid. I can't let it disappear on my watch. I can't let my parents rest uneasy in their graves. But I'm so tired, Logan. I can't keep doing this. It's Blackstone Agribusiness. They have money, they have power, they own the bank, they control the market. I have nothing. I can't win against them." Her voice grew quieter and quieter, until she was almost buried in her knees, a choked sob finally breaking through. Logan's heart felt like it was being crushed in a vice, the pain sharp and unrelenting. He'd always known she was strong, but he'd never known she'd been carrying such a heavy chain around her neck. He'd always known her life had been hard, but he'd never imagined she'd been trapped in this carefully laid, inescapable trap, alone for 2 whole years. He reached down, gently pulling her up from the floor and into his arms, holding her tight. Leah couldn't hold on any longer. She buried her face in his chest and cried, loud and unrestrained. All the hurt, the fear, the pressure, the helplessness of 2 years came pouring out in that moment. She cried for a long time, every tear she'd held back for 2 years falling into his chest. Logan just held her, rubbing slow, soothing circles on her back, not interrupting, not offering empty platitudes. He just held her, steady and safe, catching every piece of her as she fell apart. When her cries finally faded into soft, shaky hiccups, he cupped her face in his hands, brushing the tears from her cheeks with his thumbs. His gaze was serious, almost reverent. "Leah, look at me." Leah lifted her head, her eyes red and puffy with tears, staring straight into his deep, unshakable gaze. "I make you this promise." Logan's voice was low, but every word hit like a hammer, solid and unbreakable, searing itself into her heart. "I will pay back every cent of this loan. Every last one. I will cut every last thread between Blackstone Agribusiness and the bank. They will never threaten you again. I will help you hold onto this land. The cowshed, the barn, the wheat fields, this home. All of it. I will make Arthur Black pay for what he's done. He will never set foot on the Carter farm again. With me, you don't have to be strong. You don't have to be scared. You don't have to carry this alone. There's only one thing you need to remember." He paused, his gaze soft but unyielding, his voice solemn and sure. "From this moment forward, I will never let you lose anything. The farm will not be lost. This home will not fall apart. And you will never lose me." Leah stared at him, stunned, tears welling up in her eyes again. This time they weren't tears of hurt, but of overwhelming relief, of gratitude, of a warmth that spread through her entire body. She knew how terrifyingly powerful Blackstone was, knew that $1.5 million was a life-changing sum for an ordinary person. But looking into Logan's eyes, she believed him. She believed every word he said. She believed every promise he made. But that's so much money. And Blackstone is impossible to fight. She couldn't help but worry, still. "I don't want to drag you into this. I don't want you to get in trouble because of me." Logan leaned down, pressing a soft, unshakable kiss to her forehead. "You're not a burden." His voice was quiet, gentle. "You're the reason I stayed. You're the one I want to protect. Your home is my home. Protecting you, protecting this place is what I want to do. What I have to do." He didn't say where his confidence came from. He didn't reveal his identity. He didn't lay out his hand. But with simple, straightforward, unshakable words, he gave her every last bit of security she'd ever needed. Leah looked at him, tears streaming down her face, but she smiled. She wrapped her arms tight around his waist, pressing her face into his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. In that moment, all the fear, the unease, the despair, vanished without a trace. She knew, from the moment he made that promise, she would never be fighting alone again. Logan held the woman in his arms, the warmth in his eyes fading, replaced by a cold, sharp resolve. "Arthur Black. The bank. Blackstone Agribusiness. You touched her. You touched her home. You crossed my line. Now this game is played by my rules." He rubbed slow circles on Leah's back, a complete plan already forming in his mind. Capital, channels, evidence, connections. The power he held was far greater than anyone could have imagined. He'd held back before, not wanting to break this fragile peace, not wanting to drag her into his world. But now he had no choice. For her, he would do whatever it took. The night deepened, the porch light still glowing warm and bright. The two of them sat wrapped in each other's arms in the evening breeze, no more words needed, their hearts aligned. Leah knew the road ahead was still dangerous, that Blackstone wouldn't give up so easily. But she also knew, no matter what happened, there would always be a man standing in front of her, shielding her from the storm, cutting a path through the thorns, holding onto her wheat fields and her starlight. Logan looked down at the woman resting peacefully against his shoulder, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. The promise had been made. He would keep it. The home he would protect. Her he would guard with his life. No one would take them away. Chapter 13 Behind the Scenes Maneuvers. For Logan, a promise once made was never just empty words. The night Leah had let down every last one of her defenses, laying the very life and death of the farm bare before him, he'd set in motion a precise, ruthless plan, quiet and unseen by anyone. He didn't wake her to it, didn't let her catch even a glimpse of the calculation and cold resolve beneath it all. He hid every undercurrent, every ounce of his power, beneath the gentle day-to-day care he gave her. The first thing he set out to do was sever Blackstone Agribusiness's sharpest blade, the bank loan breathing down their necks. Early the next morning, Logan left alone, driving into town under the pretense of buying farm supplies. He didn't head for the town center, though. He drove north, straight for the private airstrip near the state capitol. Using a newly activated encrypted phone, he dialed a number he hadn't touched in years. The phone was answered after a single ring, a voice on the other end tight with reverence and barely contained urgency. "Sir, it's you. We've been waiting to hear from you." "Keep it quiet." Logan's voice was cold, a world away from the soft-spoken man he was at the farm. "I'm in Red Willow, Montana, at the Carter farm. I need 3 things done. Immediately." "Anything, sir? Just name it." "First, dig up the full ownership structure of the bank holding the Carter farm mortgage, and get me in touch with the top decision maker. I want all collection activity halted, all penalty interest frozen, all foreclosure proceedings stopped. The overdue debt is to be reset to standard interest accrual, with no collections, no pressure, no additional terms for 3 years. Second, anonymously deposit a sum of money, in a personal capacity, sufficient to pay off all overdue interest and late fees on the farm. Wipe the default record from the books completely. Leave no trace. Third, keep eyes on Blackstone Agribusiness and Arthur Black. Compile every last bit of evidence of their hostile takeovers, bribery of officials, price manipulation and coercion of farmers over the last 5 years. Encrypt it and send it to me." There was a clear pause on the other end of the line, the person on the other side clearly stunned by the string of orders, but they responded at once. "Understood. It will all be done exactly as you say. The funds will be deposited within the hour, the bank will have a final answer for you by the end of the day, and the Blackstone files will be compiled by evening. No one is to know my identity. No one is to alert the farm's owner. No one is to trace the source of the funds." Logan's voice sharpened, heavy with warning. "If there's a single misstep, you know the consequences." "Yes, sir." Absolute confidentiality. Hanging up the phone, Logan stared out at the wheat fields flying past the window, his gaze deep. He'd wanted to stay on this land as an ordinary man, but reality had forced his hand, made him wield the power he'd wanted so badly to leave behind. For Leah. For this home. He had no other choice. That afternoon, something happened that left Leah utterly stunned. The bank called her, their tone a complete reversal of the cold, hard edge it had held for months. It was polite, almost deferential. "Miss Carter, good afternoon. Following a full review by head office, the risk rating on your farm loan has been adjusted downward. Your overdue record has been cleared, all late fees waived, and your repayment term has been automatically extended by 3 years. There will be no collections, no enforcement action during that time. You just focus on running your farm, and we'll handle the rest." Leah held the phone to her ear, frozen solid. "What did you say?" She could barely believe her own ears. "The overdue record is cleared? The late fees are waived? The term extended 3 years?" "That's correct, ma'am. All of it is effective, immediately. If you have any needs at all going forward, please don't hesitate to reach out." The voice on the other end was polite for a few more moments, then hung up. Leah stood rooted to the spot, her heart racing. Just the day before, she'd been cornered by Blackstone and the bank, one wrong step away from losing the farm entirely. Today, everything had turned around. The mountain hanging over her head had been lifted, just like that. No more collections, no more penalty interest, no more foreclosure. 3 whole years to breathe to turn things around. The first person she thought of was Logan. Logan? She ran out of the main house, finding him by the wheat fields calibrating one of the tractors. "The bank just called. They cleared the overdue record, waived all the late fees, and extended the repayment term by 3 years." Logan set down his tools and turned to her, a perfectly calibrated look of surprise and relief crossing his face. He reached out, brushing a fleck of dust from her cheek. "That's wonderful. You can breathe easy now." "But how is this even possible?" Leah still couldn't wrap her head around it. They were so unyielding before, and Blackstone was in bed with them. "Probably the farm's turnaround has lowered the risk, so the bank re-evaluated." Logan brushed it off casually, his tone natural, not a single crack in his facade. "Don't overthink it. The crisis is averted for now, and we've got time to build the farm up right." Leah looked at his calm, gentle face, and though a flicker of doubt still lingered in her chest, she didn't press it further. She told herself it was a stroke of luck, that the farm had finally caught a break. She never would have guessed that the man standing in front of her was the one who'd pulled every string, orchestrated it all from the shadows. And stabilizing the bank was only the start of Logan's plan. With the debt crisis handled, he immediately set to work on the second thing, changing the farm's fate entirely. Under the guise of optimizing operations, he quietly restructured the farm's entire business model. He rezoned the planting fields, switching from standard wheat to high-value organic hard red winter wheat. He set up full traceability production records to align with organic certification, optimized the irrigation and fertilization plants to cut costs and boost quality, and even designed custom packaging himself, stamping each batch of grain with the farm's exclusive brand. What shocked Leah most of all, though, was the sales channels. The problem that had left her tearing her hair out for years, grain that wouldn't sell for a fair price, channels locked down by Blackstone, Logan solved completely in just a few days. Through a string of encrypted emails and quiet phone calls, he quietly connected the farm to high-end restaurants, organic grocery chains, and artisanal baking brands in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. These were channels that would never have given a small family farm from a tiny town the time of day before. But under Logan's direction, they didn't just reach out, they offered long-term fixed-price contracts at 3 times the market rate, locking in the farm's entire harvest for the next 3 years in one go. In a single week, the farm's revenue tripled. Old Joe stared at the numbers coming in every day, grinning from ear to ear, shaking his head in disbelief. "Leah, this boy isn't just a farmhand. He's a godsend, plain and simple." Leah was just as awestruck. She watched Logan turn the farm's tangled mess into something seamless and thriving, watched the numbers in the ledger climb higher every day, watched the heavy weight on her shoulders lift little by little. Her heart was full of gratitude, of reliance on him. But at the same time, that deep-seated curiosity and unease grew stronger too. It was becoming clearer and clearer to her that what Logan was doing went far beyond knowing agriculture, being hardworking, or having good luck. To make a bank bend to his will with a single word. To connect with high-end New York channels effortlessly. To move massive sums of money to wipe away the debt without a trace. To turn the fate of an entire farm on its head in a matter of weeks. This wasn't something an ordinary man on the run could do. Who was he, really? What kind of power, what kind of name was he hiding behind that calm smile? That night the two of them sat on the porch, the night soft around them, the sky full of stars. Leah leaned her head on Logan's shoulder, silent for a long time, before she finally spoke, her voice quiet. "Logan? The bank thing, the sales channels, it was all you, wasn't it?" Logan's body tensed slightly. He didn't deny it, didn't confirm it. He just squeezed her hand gently. "I told you. I'd help you hold on to this home. But how did you do it?" She lifted her head, looking into his eyes, her voice thick with a question she could no longer hold back. "You're just a man running from a life that was laid out for you. How could you have this kind of power? How do you make a bank bow down? How do you connect with those high-end channels like it's nothing?" There was no anger in her voice, only confusion, only unease. She was scared she didn't really know him. Scared she was living a lie. Scared all the beauty in front of her was just an illusion. Logan's chest ached when he saw the unease in her eyes. He knew he couldn't keep hiding it forever. Every time he wielded his power, he brought the truth one step closer to the light. But he still couldn't tell her. Not yet. He was terrified that when she knew the truth, she'd be scared. That she'd feel lied to. That she'd never be able to accept the life he'd come from. Leah, trust me. He took her hand, pressing it to his chest, his gaze earnest and soft. I haven't lied to you. It's just, there are some things I can't talk about right now. Once I've sorted out all this trouble, once the farm is completely safe, I'll tell you everything. All of it. No more secrets. Until then, you just need to know that everything I've done for you. For this home. His gaze was too sincere, his voice too gentle, the warmth of his palm against hers too steady. Leah looked at him, and all the doubt and unease in her heart ultimately lost out to the trust she had for him. She nodded softly, resting her head back on his shoulder, her voice light and soft. Okay. I trust you. Logan let out a quiet breath, holding her tight. He knew he didn't have much time left. Blackstone wouldn't give up so easily, and his family wouldn't let him disappear forever. The truth would come out sooner or later, and he had to clear away every last bit of danger before then. He had to give her a future that was completely safe, completely secure. As the night deepened, Logan quietly pulled out his phone, checking a new email that had come through. It was the full, unbroken chain of evidence against Blackstone Agribusiness: hostile takeovers, commercial bribery, market manipulation. Page after page, damning and unshakable. Logan stared at the screen, his gaze turning cold, inch by inch. Arthur Black. You want the farm. What I want is to leave you with nothing at all. He tapped the screen lightly, replying with a single line. Keep digging. We move in for the takedown. In the dark, a silent war had begun. Logan had woven a net from the shadows, single-handedly, guarding the warmth at his side while facing down the tide of malice heading their way. Leah curled up in his arms, sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that the man she loved was using an entire world she'd never known to hold up a sky for her, safe from every storm. The farm's lights glowed warm, the wheat fields quiet, the stars bright overhead. No one knew that beneath the calm, a plan that would upend the entire agricultural landscape of the region was quietly unfolding. And Logan's identity, like a seed buried deep in the dark, waited for the moment it would break through the soil. Chapter 14: The Noose Tightens. Logan's behind-the-scenes maneuvering had barely pried open a window of reprieve for the Carter farm when Blackstone Agribusiness's retaliation rolled in like a storm cloud. Arthur Black had hit a wall with the bank, the carefully coordinated collections and foreclosure suddenly ground to a halt. He didn't need to guess to know someone was backing Leah from the shadows. Shrewd and calculating, Arthur didn't go head-to-head right away. Instead, he chose the most vicious, most final method imaginable: cut off their supplies, cut off their roots, cut off their very means of survival. A siege with no bullets, no bloodshed, had officially begun. The first thing to be severed was their sales channels. The New York buyers who'd been confirming orders with eager emails the day before, all sent termination notices at once the next morning. No explanation, just a vague business restructuring to unilaterally end the contracts. They were even willing to pay the full penalty, just to cut all ties with the Carter farm completely. Leah sat staring at her laptop, refreshing her inbox again and again, her fingers ice cold, her body frozen. Immediately after, the organic grocery chains, bakeries, and grain buyers across the state all closed their doors, as if they'd made a pact. The partners who'd been polite enough before wouldn't even take her calls now, and when they did, their voices were evasive. Leah, I'm sorry. We just can't, we don't have a choice. The implication was clear: someone had leaned on them. Anyone who did business with the Carter farm was making an enemy of Blackstone Agribusiness. Leah's heart sank, slow and heavy, into the pit of her stomach. The sales channels Logan had worked so hard to open up were gone, overnight. The high-quality organic wheat, piling up in the warehouse, had become dead weight. No one willing to buy it, no way to turn it into cash to keep the farm afloat. But this was only the beginning. 3 days later, their farm supply lines were cut off completely. Spring planting was right around the corner. Seed, fertilizer, pesticide, tractor parts. Every single thing was urgent and non-negotiable. Leah called every farm supply store in town and the surrounding area, working her way down the list of partners she'd used for years, only to get the same answer every time. Out of stock. Can't get it in. Can't sell it to you. She drove all over town herself, but the shop owners she'd known for years either hid from her entirely or just shook their heads flat out. Leah, Mr. Black gave us the word. If we sell you so much as a single seed, a single pound of fertilizer, we'll be run out of business. Leah stood in the empty doorway of the farm supply store, the cold wind cutting through her coat, freezing her to the bone. Blackstone Agribusiness had used its money and influence, threats and bribes, to make sure no merchant in the area would supply the Carter farm with anything at all. No seed meant no spring planting. No spring planting meant no harvest the next year. No harvest meant the farm was dead in the water. Arthur didn't want to beat them down once. He wanted to rip them out by the roots. It got even worse. Even their daily necessities were being restricted. The grocery store wouldn't sell her flour and oil, the feed store wouldn't sell her livestock feed, even the gas station made excuses not to fill up her pickup. The whole of Red Willow had hit a hard reset, isolating the Carter farm like it was the plague. Everyone in town avoided them like the plague. Overnight, Leah had been completely cut off. When she got back to the farm, her face was white as a sheet, her hands and feet ice cold, all the strength drained from her body. Logan saw the look on her face, and his stomach dropped. He opened his mouth to ask what was wrong, but Leah broke before he could, her voice shaking. Logan, the channels are all gone. We can't get supplies, we can't get gas, the stores won't sell us anything. They're going to starve us out. The fear and despair she'd been holding back for days exploded all at once. Logan's face went cold in an instant, the air around him turning thick and heavy with rage. He'd guessed Arthur would hit back, but he'd never imagined the man would be this vicious, willing to weaponize the entire region's business network to strangle a small family farm out of existence. This wasn't business competition. It was a hostile, malicious siege, plain and simple. I'll handle it. Logan's voice was tight, and he turned to grab his car keys. It's no use. Leah reached out and grabbed him, her eyes red, but she held back the tears. They did this on purpose. Every merchant in town, in the whole region, has been leaned on. There's no one you can go to that will help. She looked at him, and for the first time a hopeless, defeated despair crept into her voice. Logan, they're too powerful. We can't win. Blackstone Agribusiness had money, influence, connections, teeth. All they had was the land, each other, and a stubborn refusal to give up. Against that kind of overwhelming power, every bit of defiance felt small, pointless. That night Leah didn't sleep a wink. She sat at her desk, staring out at the black wheat fields, never closing her eyes. The shadow of collections, the dead sales channels, the missing supplies, the town's isolation, Blackstone's relentless advance, all of it came crashing down on her again, heavier than it had ever been before. She didn't care if she suffered, if she was pushed around. But she was terrified of dragging Logan down with her. This man had already weathered so many storms for her, fixed so many of her messes. She couldn't stand by and watch him get pulled into even deeper danger because of her. When dawn broke, Leah made a terrible, painful decision. She found Logan, her gaze steady, but her voice hard with a resolve he'd never heard before. Logan, you need to leave. Logan froze like he'd misheard her. What did you say? You need to leave here. Leave Montana. Go back to the life you had before. Leah looked away, unable to meet his eyes, her voice shaking slightly, but she forced the words out, cold and sharp. The farm is done for. I can't keep it going. You don't need to go down with me. If you leave, Blackstone won't come after you anymore. You can go back to your quiet life. She was scared if she looked at him, she'd break. She'd crumble and beg him not to go. So she forced herself to be cruel, to push him away. Logan's face fell, slow and cold, his eyes wide with disbelief and a sharp, wounded hurt beneath it. You want me to leave? He stepped closer, his voice low. Right now, When everything is falling apart, you want me to leave you here alone? I'm not leaving you behind. I don't want to drag you down with me. Leah couldn't hold it back anymore, turning to face him, her eyes bright with tears. All they want is the farm, is me. If you leave, you'll be safe. I can't let you get stuck in this mess because of me. Mess? Logan grabbed her shoulders, his grip gentle but unshakable. Leah, look at me. From the day I decided to stay, from the day I made you that promise, your problems are my problems. Your home is my home. Do you really think I'd leave you now? But there's nothing we can do. She broke, crying out the words. We can't get seed, we can't sell the grain, we can't even get gas. They're going to trap us here until we die. We can't beat them. I'll find a way. I'll fix this. Logan stared at her, his gaze unwavering, deadly serious. All you need to know is that I'm not leaving. Ever. Why do you have to stay? She cried, the tears falling fast now. Is it worth it? For me, for a farm that's about to fall apart? Is it really worth it? Logan reached up, brushing the tears from her cheeks, his touch gentle but his voice as firm as steel. Worth it. Because it's you. It's always worth it. Those 4 words shattered every last bit of her brave facade. She threw herself into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably, all the hurt, the fear, the despair, the desperate longing pouring out of her. Logan held her tight, rubbing slow circles on her back, letting her cry into his shirt until it was soaked through. He knew she didn't really want him to leave. She was just scared of losing him. And he would never ever leave her to face this siege alone. Once he'd calmed Leah down, Logan walked alone to the edge of the wheat fields and dialed the encrypted number. The second the call connected, every last trace of warmth left his voice, replaced by icy, unyielding authority. Freeze every single one of Arthur Black's business partnerships, supply chains, and merchant contracts across Montana. I want him to know what it feels like to have nowhere left to turn in 72 hours. Additionally, arrange for an immediate discreet shipment of seed, fertilizer, fuel, and daily necessities from out of state to the Carter farm. No one is to find out about it. No one is to let Leah know I arranged it. Also, submit the evidence of Blackstone Agribusiness's malicious monopolization and coercion of merchants to the State Department of Agriculture and the Antitrust Division. It's time to fight back. The voice on the other end responded, reverent and immediate. Understood, sir. It will be done at once. Hanging up the phone, Logan stared out at the endless wheat fields, his gaze deep. Arthur Black. You want a siege? I'll give you a war. You cut off one road for her. I'll cut off every single one for you. You want to trap her here until she starves? I'll leave you bankrupt with nothing at all. But Logan didn't tell Leah any of this right away. He knew she was worn thin, body and soul, couldn't handle another roller coaster of hope and fear. He just wanted to clear the obstacles away from the shadows as fast as he could and give her a safe, happy surprise. For the next 2 days, the farm remained trapped in its dire straits. Leah forced herself to keep going, rationing the last of their supplies down to the last crumb, cutting the livestock feed in half, simplifying their meals to the bare minimum, cutting out every unnecessary expense. She stared at the empty warehouse, at the fields that couldn't be planted, and despair still hung heavy over her. She had no idea that a quiet, unseen rescue was already unfolding in the shadows. Late on the 3rd night, the faint sound of vehicles pulled up to the farm gates. Logan slipped out of bed quietly and walked outside. Several unmarked trucks were parked by the side of the road, and crates of high-quality seed, organic fertilizer, fuel, groceries, feed, and medical supplies were being unloaded quickly, quietly, into the farm's warehouse, barn, and storage rooms. The man in charge nodded to Logan, respectful and quiet. Sir, everything on the list has been delivered exactly as ordered. No one saw a thing. Logan nodded once, his voice flat. Well done. Once the trucks had left, Logan flipped on the warehouse lights. Staring at the stacks of supplies filling the space from floor to ceiling, he finally let out a quiet breath. When Leah saw this in the morning, she'd be so happy. He walked back to the bedroom, lying down gently beside Leah. She was sleeping restlessly, her brow furrowed, soft mumbles slipping from her lips. "The farm, home, don't go." Logan's chest ached, and he pulled her into his arms, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "Don't be scared. I've got you. The siege is over. Now it's my turn to fight back." The night deepened, the Montana stars spilling over the wheat fields. In his warm embrace, Leah's brow slowly smoothed, her breathing steadying into a peaceful sleep. She had no idea that the man she'd tried to push away had already blocked every blow of the siege, had already paved every road forward for her in the places she couldn't see. Blackstone Agribusiness's relentless advance, for all its ferocity, was about to crumble completely, undone by Logan's quiet maneuvering. And the Carter farm's darkest hour would break with the coming dawn. Chapter 15: The Fight and the Confession. Leah woke to the faint sound of movement, just as the first light of dawn was painting the sky. She rubbed her throbbing temples, sitting up in bed. The spot beside her was empty, the sheets cool. Logan had been up for hours, it seemed. The weight of the last few weeks had wrapped around her like a cold, damp blanket, suffocating her. Dead sales channels, no supplies, Blackstone Agribusiness closing in on every side, the whole town avoiding them like the plague. Every morning she woke up to a dozen new crises, and even breathing felt heavy. She washed up quickly and stepped out into the hall, only to hear the sound of heavy things being moved coming from the warehouse. Leah's stomach dropped, instantly fearing Blackstone had sent men to cause trouble, and she ran toward it as fast as she could. When she pushed open the warehouse doors, she froze in place, completely stunned. The vast warehouse was packed to the rafters. Brand new sealed bags of organic wheat seed, stacks of high-grade fertilizer, crates of unopened tractor parts, large sealed drums of fuel. Even groceries, livestock feed, over-the-counter medicine, every single thing they'd been missing, every urgent, desperate need they couldn't fill was right there. Logan was bent over a clipboard, checking off items on a list. He looked up when he heard the door open, meeting her shocked gaze. "You're up," he said, his tone casual, like he'd just set out a few ordinary tools. Leah walked slowly into the warehouse, her fingers trembling as she brushed against the new seed bags, her voice thin and unsteady. Where did all this come from? We don't have the money for this. How did you?" "A friend pulled some strings, got it to us to tide us over." Logan brushed it off, casual as ever. There it was again. Another vague explanation. Another arrangement made behind her back, another move she couldn't follow, couldn't understand. The hurt, the fear, the unease that had been building in her chest for days exploded all at once. "Tide us over?" Her voice rose sharply, her eyes burning red in an instant. "Logan, how long are you going to keep lying to me?" The bank suddenly waiving all the fees, extending the loan out of nowhere. The high-end New York channels appearing out of thin air. Now, overnight, the warehouse is full of things we can't even afford to buy, and you tell me it's just to tide us over? Who are you really? Who are these so-called friends of yours? How much more are you hiding from me? Things I don't know a single thing about. The questions poured out of her, her voice shaking violently. The pressure of the last few days had pushed her to the breaking point, and Logan's endless secrets, his constant evasions, were a thorn stuck in the most vulnerable part of her. Logan's brow furrowed and he stepped forward, reaching for her shoulder. "Leah, I'm not trying to hide things from you. I just don't want you to worry." "I don't want to hear that." She stepped back sharply, yanking away from his touch, the tears finally spilling over. "You say that every single time? You never tell me anything. You carry everything alone. What do you think I am? Some useless thing that needs to be protected? An outsider you can't even trust? That's not what this is." Logan's voice dropped, a sharp, wounded edge to it. "Everything I've done for you. For the farm. I just don't want to drag you into something more complicated than you can imagine. But I'm already dragged into it." She cried, the words breaking on a sob. "Blackstone is trying to take my home. They're trying to run us out of here. I wake up every day scared out of my mind. I'm scared the farm will be gone. I'm scared something will happen to you. I'm scared you'll leave one day and never come back. You're so powerful. Your past is such a mystery. You can fix every impossible thing that's going to kill us with a snap of your fingers. We're not even from the same world. You're just here for a little while, for something new. And when you get bored, you'll go back to your old life, and what about me? I'll still be here, stuck with this mess. Her emotions completely unspooled, she spilled every last fear, every last insecurity, every terrible thought she'd been too scared to say out loud. Logan stared at her, tears streaming down her face, and his heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice, tight and aching. He finally understood. The protection he'd thought he was giving her, the secrets he'd hidden to keep her safe, had all just become distance, a wall, a source of endless fear for her. He'd thought he was guarding her, but his silence had only been pushing her away, little by little. So that's why you told me to leave? His voice was low and rough, his eyes glistening with hurt. While I'm doing everything I can to protect you, you're thinking about sending me away, so I don't drag you down? Yes. She nodded through her tears, forcing out the cruelest words she could. I don't want to drag you down. Just leave. Go back to where you belong. Stop caring about me, stop caring about the farm. We never should have met. We never should have been together. The words hit like an ice pick, straight through Logan's chest. He stared at her, his own eyes reddening at the edges, every word slow and sharp. In your eyes, am I the kind of man who would run away and leave you when things get hard? That's not what I meant. Her chest tightened, the words already out, impossible to take back, but she forced herself to hold her ground. I just don't want you to ruin your life because of me. My life? Logan let out a bitter, hollow laugh. Leah, do you have any idea? Before I passed out in that ditch on that rainy night, I didn't have a life. I had schedules, responsibilities, chains, deals. I was a puppet with no soul. You picked me up. You gave me a home. You showed me that life could be quiet and warm and full of something real. You're not a burden. You're the reason I'm alive. You want me to leave? Where am I supposed to go? Back to that cage with no warmth, no freedom, no you? He stepped closer, his voice growing rougher but firmer with every word. I'm not leaving. Not if you kill me. Not even if you throw me out. I'm not going anywhere. Leah looked at the raw, genuine pain and resolve in his eyes, and every last bit of her brave facade shattered completely. She couldn't hold on any longer, dropping to her knees and covering her face, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. I'm scared. Logan, I'm so scared. I'm scared I can't hold on to the farm. I'm scared I'm not good enough for you. I'm scared one day you'll tell me it was all a lie, that you never belonged here. Logan knelt down, gently pulling her hands away from her face, and pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. This time, she didn't fight him. She just buried her face in his chest, crying uncontrollably. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He whispered the apology over and over, his chin resting on the top of her head, his voice heavy with a weight he'd held back for far too long. It's my fault. I was selfish. I was scared I'd scare you, scared you'd leave me, so I didn't tell you the truth. Leah's sobs slowed, her fingers tightening in the front of his shirt, white-knuckled. The truth. He was finally going to tell her the truth. Logan took a deep breath, holding her a little tighter, like he was gathering the courage to say what came next. The warehouse was quiet, nothing but the sound of their breathing, and her soft fading hiccups. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, there was no more hesitation, no more secrets. Only honesty, and a quiet, unshakable resolve. Leah, his voice was low and clear, every word slow and deliberate, right in her ear. Don't send me away. Don't be scared anymore. Once I finish this thing with Blackstone, I'll tell you everything. All of it. My real name, who I really am, my family, why I was in that ditch that night, why I was hurt, why I didn't want to go back. Every secret. Every lie. Everything you want to know. I'll tell you all of it. No more holding back. Leah lifted her head from his chest, staring up at him through tear-blurred eyes, her lashes still wet with tears. Really? Really? Logan nodded, his thumb brushing the last of the tears from her cheek, his gaze utterly sincere. I promise. No more secrets from you. But you have to promise me something too. No more telling me to leave. No more carrying this all alone. We're partners. We're in love. We're the ones who are going to hold on to this home together. When things get hard, we face them together. When there are secrets, we carry them together. When there's a future, we walk it together. Leah looked into his deep, honest eyes, and every last bit of unease, doubt, hurt, and fear vanished completely and utterly. She wrapped her arms tight around his waist, burying her face in his warm chest again, and nodded hard. Okay. A fierce, terrible fight hadn't pushed them apart. It had broken down every wall, every mask, every last bit of distance between them. The unease hidden in the silence, the secrets wrapped in protection, the fears too terrible to speak aloud, all of it had been laid bare in the tears, in the honesty, out in the light. Logan held the woman in his arms, worn out from crying, and slowly going quiet against him, and made a silent vow to himself. No more waiting. No more hiding. Once Blackstone Agribusiness was dealt with, once this final hurdle was cleared, he'd tell her everything. Every last part of it, no holds barred. No matter if she was scared, if she was angry, if she couldn't accept it. He wasn't letting go. Because he'd known for a long time now. He wasn't going anywhere for the rest of his life. He was staying right here by her side, guarding these wheat fields, guarding this home. The sun climbed slowly up the warehouse windows, illuminating the stacks of supplies across the floor, and the two of them, locked in each other's arms. The smoke of the fight had cleared, leaving behind a trust stronger than before, hearts more open than they'd ever been, a love that could never be broken. Leah pressed herself against Logan's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, and finally breathed easy. She wasn't scared anymore. She wasn't lost anymore. She wasn't alone anymore. Because she knew from this moment on, they'd face every storm together. They'd face every truth together.